And that in turn answers the question why we did that rather than doing something else. More advocacy for the general principle of a culture goal, for instance. In a very real sense, I think that argument is won. We've had 10 years of implementing the SDGs without a culture goal. Look at the results. If you'll allow me to speak Latin for just a moment, si monumentum requiris circumspice. Can't remember who said that, Horace, I think. But what it means, if your Latin isn't fluent, mine certainly isn't, is if you seek his monument, just look around. The monument to the absence of culture is the current state of the international system. We can do better. But in order to make an argument, not just for a culture goal, but for the culture goal to be adopted, it needs to be the kind of goal that could in principle be adopted. It needs to fit within the technical constraints of the SDG architecture. Those aren't limiting constraints, but they're a necessary baseline. And as you read through the indicator framework, you will see that we've been very sensitive to the need not to limit ourselves to what is easily measurable. It's important. They're called Tier 1 indicators in the UN jargon. It's important to have measurable Tier 1 indicators in a credible proposal for a culture goal, whether it is adopted on a voluntary basis now or formally at the intergovernmental level later. But in addition, there are other kinds of indicators, Tier 2 indicators, which are basically indicators that can only be measured in some places now, but could become exemplary for broader measurement later. And then there's lots of things that can't be measured in that statistical sense, but can be monitored, assessed, reported on, and shared in a continuous process of knowledge feedback. And you will see that by including 4 different levels of indicator development in the draft culture goal, we've made it possible to have that conversation. And important to add, and this is well known for other SDGs also, the SDGs are a minimum agreed baseline. They don't limit anyone's ability to do anything. It's just that usually, in the private sector, invariably, minimum compliance is the track adopted. This brings me to the question, what next? And there are several dimensions here. And what next, I should emphasize, starts right now, here, with you. It doesn't start in 6 months, and it certainly doesn't start in 2027 when, if the world stays on the currently defined track, there will be an SDG summit in New York to shape the parameters of the post-2030 development framework. First track, to make the culture goal visible, to strengthen the advocacy, to broaden it beyond those who are already convinced. We can't just be talking to the believers. We want to make new people believers. I won't sing the Monkees song, but if you know it, I'm a believer. You can hear the tune in your head. We need to broaden the scope of believers, including beyond the usual suspects within the culture sector, not because they're not important, but because this is a transversal goal that speaks to all the aspects of the 2030 agenda. And if you think you can resolve climate, ocean, gender equality, education, and health issues without culture, forget it. You're going to fail. So let's make those connections explicit, build the transversal bridges. Secondly, there needs, of course, to be an effort to encourage states, some of them at this stage, to take this proposal seriously. Now, many states, we know, I've heard this myself from certain states that I've talked to at foreign ministry level, say, it's a great idea, but not now. Let's discuss that later. And the answer to that is later will be too late. The time is now or never. But creating the conditions for that conversation will require an effort. And third, and perhaps most important, that effort depends crucially on adoption of the culture goal on a voluntary basis by anyone convinced that it's important. A city, a private sector company, a foundation, an association, a state. Anyone can adopt it without waiting for formal intergovernmental recognition. So, make noise about it, talk about it to state representatives, and see what you can do to adopt it in your own practice, starting this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. I will now introduce each one of the members of the steering group of the campaign. The same questions for you all. You are invited to develop 1, 2, the 3 questions, but I beg you not to go beyond the 3 minutes. Give us headlines, give us the energy, and let us dream that this is going to happen. The 3 questions that we have agreed are the following. Explain your organization, the significance of your organization, so that everyone in the room can know a little bit more about you. Highlight one aspect of the document, if you wish, and give us, yes, the dream to imagine that this is going to happen. The first speaker is Sharon Memis, the Secretary General of the International Federation of Libraries, Associations and Institutions. Sharon, you have the floor.
Can you hear me? Interpreters also? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. It is a real pleasure to be here. What I would say is I hope that after 2030, I'm not saying what I said in 2023, that had we had a culture goal, we would have been on track. So let me begin a little about IFLA. I mean, for almost 100 years, we're about to celebrate our centenary. IFLA has brought together the global library field. We are a network of networks with library association and institutional members in 150 countries. And we firmly believe that the library sector contributes to the achievement of all the Sustainable Development Goals, because libraries are rooted in culture. We safeguard and provide access to culture and heritage, and we reflect local culture, memory, and creative expression. But culture's critical role in achieving sustainable development is too often invisible. Culture is more than the glue, it's the engine. And for this reason, we believe that without a dedicated goal and measurable targets, we cannot unlock the full potential of culture and human potential. A culture goal would help us create that shared language, shared framework for action and accountability, and critically, one that is shared with actors outside of our sector, helping them to see the potential of libraries and culture through a different and perhaps more familiar policy lens. Focusing on Target A, which calls for the strengthening of cultural institutions to build capacity across all policy areas. And this is really where culture connects with every other SDG and where libraries shine. And this target's particularly important for IFLA because enabling libraries to fulfill their missions related to education, access to information, and upholding cultural rights is critical for inclusive, sustainable development, a better future for all. And let's be clear, this goal is more than our sector. 1 minute. It's about helping everyone achieve their rights. Our work mustn't stop here in Barcelona. This goal, this meeting, needs to be that springboard to a vibrant global outreach campaign where we help other stakeholders, other ministries understand how much they have to gain from embracing the transformative power of culture. So we call on culture ministers and critically finance, environment, foreign affairs and other ministers too, to commit to culturally informed, culturally grounded, culturally powered development. Libraries are ready, culture's ready. We should work together to accelerate sustainable development and make it truly sustainable now and beyond 2030. Because culture isn't just some nebulous optional extra. I think it's more steel than fluff. And culture is the architecture of human possibility and we ignore it at our peril. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now the floor is for Naima Benkari, the SDG Working Group focal point of the ICOMOS, the International Council on Monuments and Sites. Naima.
Thank you so much, Jordi. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for the time you've taken to attend this session. I'm speaking on behalf of ICOMOS, which is the International Council on Monuments and Sites, and we are a global network of around 12,000 individual members, part of around 130 countries and territories. We are an official advisory body to UNESCO on World Heritage, and we are also a founding member and partner with UCLG of the Culture 2030 Global Campaign since 2019. From the start, our role has been to bring evidence, standards, and advocacy into the UN conversation. For us, heritage is not just monuments or sites, it is mainly people, identity, and resilience. If you leave culture out, you leave impact on the table. That's the message we've carried through our work and publication since 2019 through our publication Future for Our Pasts that addressed the role of local and indigenous knowledge in addressing climate crisis, and also through our ICOMOS policy guidance on heritage and the SDGs in 2021, where we addressed a plethora of case studies where the SDGs are measured, monitored, and embedded in the action within the World Heritage. You've just heard Jordi and John Crowley trace the arc of this campaign and announce the full proposal. And you've heard Mrs. Almodovar speaking about cities. And I will use this 1 minute to go very fast on what I have to say. Picking on the thread from culture goal, from necessity to reality, which John Crowley explained so clearly. He reminded us that this is not just another statement of good intentions. It's a worked out goal with real targets and indicators. ICOMOS is especially proud to see Target 8, which makes explicit the culture-nature connection. That's something we've been pushing for years through our culture-nature journey with IUCN. It's about recognizing that heritage and traditional knowledge are not relics of the past. They are tools for climate action, for sustainable cities, for protecting ecosystems. And thanks to the indicator framework that John laid out, governments and cities can measure progress in concrete ways. That's how this moves from pure rhetoric to real reality and action. At a time when our environment is under strain and community everywhere are tested, culture is not optional, it's not a luxury, it's what holds us together. It carries the memories, it anchors identities, and gives people the resilience to face challenges. It also what allows societies to build bridges when other paths are blocked. That is why the culture goal matters. The proposal before us gives us the tools, the targets, and the indicators to act. It makes culture visible, measurable, and indispensable in development planning. The simple truth is this: without culture, there is no sustainable future. With culture in the core, we have a chance to build one. So let's act since this afternoon, like John says. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Shukran, Naima. Thank you very much. Now the floor is for Medea Egner, the Director General of the International Council on Museums, ICOM.
Thank you very much. You can hear me? Perfect. 1 minute, you said?
3 minutes.
3, perfect. Thank you. Well, dear Minister of Culture of Spain, dear John Crowley, and the panel, thank you very much for inviting ICOM to this excellent discussion. The International Council of Museums, ICOM, was established 1946 in the aftermath of the World War II due to the systematic theft and the destruction of art and heritage. We are a global organization for museums and museum professionals. Our mission is to establish professional and ethical standards for museum practices. We promote and protect cultural heritage, particularly in context of threat and crisis. We provide support to museums and museum professionals on an international scale. We enhance public awareness through global networks, and we collaborate. We accomplish this together with 60,000 committed members, over 4,000 museums from 140 countries this year, actually, and territories, alongside with hundreds of expertise in the field. We are committed to support the current Sustainable Development Goals, but also we are advocating strongly for the establishment of a dedicated cultural goal within the post-2030 agenda. When governments commit to safeguarding heritage and culture, they invest in dignity, empowerment, and long-term legitimacy of the development strategies. Especially Target 2, is important for us due to the ongoing initiatives and activities of ICOM in promoting a culture of peace, non-violence, global citizenship, and the appreciation of culture and biological diversity. By incorporating peace into the cultural goal, museums and cultural sectors enhance their advocacy efforts nationally and internationally, promoting recognition of cultural institutions. This approach would motivate governance and policymakers to integrate cultural perspectives into peace-building frameworks, and thereby amplifying the contributions to the cultural sector towards achieving the broader objectives of the Sustainable Development Goals. And for culture itself, the cultural goal, would clarify their role and directly direct their commitment more clearly, leading to accelerated adaptation, mitigation, and resilience building. So we believe firmly in the cultural goal, and of course simultaneously being interconnected to the other goals at the same time. So with culture, when culture is given the space, it actually holds in this matter. The complexities of reality is accurately reflected more. So with this, I'm ending it with the headline, which is, without culture, no sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Medea. Thank you very much. Now, the floor goes to Lars Ebert, the Secretary General of Culture Action Europe. Lars?
Thank you very much, Jordi, and thanks to my comrades here on the stage and all the supporters for this opportunity, and to John, of course, for the incredible work. Culture Action Europe is the major network of other trans-European cultural networks and national networks, and calls itself the political voice of the cultural sector in Europe. We maintain an ongoing dialogue and knowledge sharing between mainly the EU institutions and the cultural sector and policymakers, or as we say, we are decoding and encoding from one side to the other. And we do advocate for transformative cultural policies that both recognize and support culture as a sector, and that's where the goal comes in, and as a transversal transformative power that cross-cuts through all the other sectors. But the challenge in the EU is that the political competence lies at member state level, which complicates the European project and our work of advocacy extremely. So in preparation of today, I was reflecting on where the term cultural policy actually came from. And it was coined by, or at least mainly coined by UNESCO after World War II, when there was a big concern that national identity would be lost in globalization. And distinctiveness, and it would be all one big mesh. And that legacy still anchors culture in the nation state. Yet, a standalone culture goal points beyond borders. It treats culture as a truly global endeavor and calls for a level of coordination no single state can deliver. It calls for rethinking culture as a supranational competence. And that's where I think the goal will be utterly helpful for us in the EU. Because culture now operates more globally, and so should cultural policies. All of this pushes culture beyond the nation state. The digital environment, AI, the greening agenda, the mental health pandemic we talked about yesterday is not a national pandemic, it's global, and the role of arts and culture in it is also global. And so on. Seen through this lens, the ambition for a standalone culture goal outgrows traditional national cultural policy. It frames culture as a universal right and a universal public good, applicable to everyone, everywhere. For our advocacy, this implies new modes of policymaking in line with the cultural democracy paradigm. Stronger international cooperation, participatory and decentralized governance models, digital cultural rights, creative commons, investment into cultural infrastructure, and cultural participation. In Europe, we advocate for a cultural deal for Europe, and I'm glad that Europa Nostra is represented here too, our partner in crime, I would say. And a cultural goal will help our advocacy to transition from a substitute cultural policy to real cultural competence for the EU and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lars. Now the floor is for Marie-Julie Desrochers, la secrétaire générale de la Fédération internationale des coalitions pour la diversité culturelle. Marie-Julie.
Muchas gracias. Je vais m'exprimer en français si vous voulez ajuster votre appareil. C'est un honneur de m'adresser à vous aujourd'hui à titre de secrétaire général de la Fédération internationale des coalitions pour la diversité culturelle, qui rassemble plus d'une trentaine de coalitions dans le monde, lesquelles représentent des artistes, des micro, petites et moyennes entreprises culturelles. Héritière de l'élan fondateur de la Convention de 2005 de l'UNESCO, la IFICDC démontre chaque jour que protéger et promouvoir la diversité des expressions culturelles demeure, de façon au moins aussi criante qu'il y a 20 ans, une nécessité dans notre économie mondialisée. Notre message est clair. Celles et ceux qui créent doivent pouvoir vivre de leur art pour que nous puissions en retour vivre à travers ce qu'ils nous offrent. Inscrire la culture comme objectif dans le futur cadre mondial de développement durable constitue un levier concret et indispensable pour y arriver. Cela est nécessaire pour réduire les déséquilibres et garantir que les générations actuelles et futures puissent se connecter dans le respect et la célébration de leur diversité. Car la culture façonne nos identités, elle nourrit un avenir plus juste, inclusif et durable et ouvre l'espace du dialogue nécessaire entre les peuples. Elle est à la fois vecteur de cohésion, instrument d'émancipation, pilier de la démocratie et, oui, moteur de développement économique. Pourtant, la transition numérique que nous vivons, aussi prometteuse soit-elle, n'est pas sans ombre d'ombre. Le paysage culturel en ligne se trouve largement dominé par des contenus provenant d'une poignée de pays, échouant à représenter la diversité culturelle et linguistique qui façonne notre monde et minant les conditions socio-économiques des artistes. Dans un monde polarisé, favoriser la découvrabilité d'une diversité d'œuvres, lutter contre la fracture numérique et les usages non éthiques de l'intelligence artificielle générative doivent être des priorités dans l'agenda mondial. Nous pouvons y arriver. Les solutions sont connues, mais nous avons besoin de volonté politique, de concertation, de transversalité, au bénéfice des secteurs des arts et des industries culturelles dans le monde. Dans plusieurs langues autochtones, il n'existe pas un mot pour traduire le terme culture. Des partenaires autochtones avec qui j'ai le privilège de collaborer par le biais de mon travail et qui sont touchés de façon particulièrement dramatique par les menaces à la durabilité de leurs langues et de leur culture, m'ont enseigné que l'expression la plus proche serait la façon dont nous vivons avec la Terre. La diversité culturelle est aussi importante que la biodiversité pour notre résilience et notre épanouissement collectif. Il est urgent d'agir pour en prendre soin. Muchas gracias.
Merci beaucoup, Marie-Julie. Merci. Now the floor is for Alassana Insa Babilas, the chairman of Arterial Network. Babilas.
Buenos días, je vais m'exprimer aussi en français. Bonjour à tous, chers collègues de la campagne, Excellence ministre de la Culture, distingués invités en vos grades et qualités. Arterial Network a été lancé sur l'île de Gorée, au Sénégal, en mars 2007. Arterial Network est un réseau panafricain de la société civile qui rassemble des artistes, des acteurs culturels et des entrepreneurs créatifs. Le réseau a son secrétariat continental à Bamako depuis 2023 et des sections nationales officielles dans plus de 31 pays africains. Arterial Network a porté d'importants projets structurants sur le continent, allant dans le sens du renforcement des capacités, du plaidoyer culturel, de l'accès au marché culturel, Sego Art, Visa for Music, Massa, FESPAM, la cartographie des organisations culturelles, le projet des villes créatives et le fonds artériel devenu Fonds africain pour la culture. L'organisation de la conférence africaine sur l'économie créative qui nous revient cette année du 30 octobre au 2 novembre à Zagora au Maroc. Le réseau culturel, pour que la culture soit reconnue comme un pilier stratégique du développement, au même titre que la santé, l'éducation ou l'environnement, et pour que des voix africaines soient pleinement prises en compte dans les politiques mondiales. L'un des points essentiels du document The Culture Goal from Necessity to Reality est la proposition de créer une coalition d'action réunissant gouvernements, société civile, organisations internationales et acteurs privés afin de promouvoir l'adoption intergouvernementale d'un objectif culturel et d'encourager son adoption volontaire à différents niveaux. Je vais citer juste quelques exemples dans des pays où nous avons un terreau favorable à travailler sur cet objectif-là. Par exemple, sur le Mali, qui soutient officiellement la campagne, et ses autorités qui ont déclaré l'année 2025 l'année de la culture. Son ouverture vers les nouvelles technologies et l'IA servira de tremplin à la valorisation de son patrimoine et à la formation des jeunes dans les métiers culturels. La Côte d'Ivoire, qui a renforcé ses politiques de soutien aux industries musicales, audiovisuelles et numériques pour créer des emplois et stimuler la croissance économique. Elle inclut l'innovation technologique et promeut la croissance des fintechs pour favoriser un écosystème propice à la monétisation du contenu culturel. Le Maroc, haut lieu touristique et hub international, se renforce avec un cadre stratégique qui lie patrimoine, tourisme culturel et innovation créative pour renforcer son rayonnement international. Le Cap-Vert, figure de pionnier, a déjà intégré des segments entiers de l'industrie culturelle dans sa politique gouvernementale et sa diplomatie culturelle. Et le Sénégal, qui pourrait aussi renforcer ses politiques culturelles en intégrant la créativité dans ses stratégies d'emploi de jeunes, d'innovation et de diplomatie culturelle. Voici en résumé quelques exemples qui démontrent qu'une coalition africaine pour la culture peut traduire la vision d'un objectif culturel en actions concrètes, contribuant à la croissance inclusive, à la cohésion sociale et aux objectifs de développement durable sur tout le continent. Nous y croyons, nous misons aussi sur la jeunesse, car la culture est un vrai moteur de développement durable. Merci.
Merci. Merci, cher Babilas. And now the floor is for Dr. Sheila Woodward, the President of the International Music Council.
Thank you, Geordie, John, panel, and all of you here today supporting the cultural goal. The International Music Council was founded by UNESCO in 1949 and represents the world's largest network of music organizations and institutions across over 150 countries. Our significance in development conversations stems from music's unique capacity to bridge divides, These are cultural, linguistic, economic, and social. What makes IMC essential to our conversation today is our foundational work on the 5 music rights. These are embedded in our vision of a world where everyone can enjoy access to music, can learn, experience, create, perform, and express themselves through music, and in which artists of every kind are recognized and fairly remunerated. The 5 music rights establish music not as a luxury, but as a fundamental human need. They provide concrete entry points for understanding how cultural rights translate into measurable developmental outcomes. When governments recognize these 5 rights, they create conditions for broader cultural sustainability. Target 1 of the culture goal, realize cultural rights for all, resonates powerfully with our 5 music rights framework. What's remarkable about this goal is how it operationalizes cultural rights through specific indicators rather than relying on them as abstract principles. The targets focus on fostering inclusive access to and participation in cultural life, creativity, and diverse artistic expressions directly mirrors our right directly mirrors our right to musical expression and education. Firstly, by measuring participation rates disaggregated by social categories, and secondly, by tracking national budget allocations for culture. Thirdly, by assessing policies that protect freedom of creation, we provide concrete mechanisms for monitoring whether the 5 music rights are being realized. My suggested headline would be, when culture becomes infrastructure, the world chooses harmony over division. Imagine a world where investing in culture is valued as highly as building water systems, where every city budget includes funding for cultural rights alongside funding for roads, and where diplomatic negotiations routinely include cultural professions, because we recognize that lasting peace comes not only from shared agreements, but from shared meaning. This culture goal offers us a pathway from existing in the margins to being at the center of development thinking. It provides a framework to demonstrate that human creativity and dignity are prerequisites for any development that deserves to be called sustainable. The dream is not about culture earning a seat at the table, but understanding that culture has always been integral to the entire structure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have witnessed that the focus, the emphasis are different, representing these 8 global networks, and how beautifully these focuses have been integrated into the proposal of 1 goal, 10 targets, and more than 100 existing possible quantitative, qualitative indicators. I have to emphasize the effort you have made to summarize your experience, your background, your dreams in only 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias. This segment ends here. Let me, before we go to the second segment to be conducted by Catarina Vaspinto, to also express our gratitude to the Ministry for Culture of Spain for allowing UCLG and the campaign to use this space and to use this time slot for this presentation. Thank you very much, Jordi, and all the team of the Ministry and all the team of the Cultura y Ciudadanía. Let me also announce that at the end of the third segment, at 1:30, we want you all to be in the room. We're going to take a picture of us all, the picture of all the people who have contributed to the Culture 2030 Goal campaign and your campaign proposal of a standalone goal for culture. So when this third segment is finished, please stay in the room, and we'll have to take, say, 2-3 minutes to arrange everything so that the picture is taken. Now, thank you very much, and we will, in the next 3 minutes, going to change the stage slightly, and the second segment will begin. Thank you. Proszę, sí. Hello. We begin the second segment. If you can please take your seats. Excellent. The second segment is led by Catarina Vaz Pinto, consultant for arts and culture, member of the supervisory board of the European Cultural Foundation, former deputy mayor for culture of Lisbon, and also former president of the UCLG Culture Committee. Catarina, thank you very much for your generosity, and you are going to lead this segment. Thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to stress how important the cultural goal will be to provide a common language and a shared framework for all those who are involved in the cultural sector, as artists, as creators, as producers, as mediators, and audience, users, spectators, creators. We know how diverse and fragmented the sector is, and how changeable its boundaries are. We are very much in line with the book, the title of Jasmine Barak's book, How Cultura Ingobernable is, in the sense that it's so spontaneous and always so inventive that it's really difficult to, it's really diverse, fragmented, and because what makes the culture always so active, alive, it's inexhaustible human diversity and creativity, and that's really one of the main feature of the world in which we live. So this campaign itself has already been an example of the relevance of such an ally, of the alliance of wills from all the partners and all the stakeholders of the campaign. And we hope that it can bring culture to a more central place in the global policy stage. So in this panel, we will continue now to highlight some of the positive outcomes that a cultural goal may have in the future, and we will hear from some institutions and organizations who work either on regional, local, city levels, or who work in specific fields such as heritage or contemporary art. And so the model is more or less the same as the previous one. I will put a question to every one of you, a specific question of you, to each of you, and then you will also are invited to choose one aspect of the document that you are wishing to explain why it's important for your organization, or why it makes us dream, or what should make us dream in this campaign. And you only have 3 minutes also. So also as Jordi, I will beg you to stay committed to your 3 short minutes. I know it's very short. So I will start with Valentina Riccardi. So you are the director of the Cultural Department of the Asia-Europe Foundation, and one of your main priorities of your work is cross-continental cooperation. Would the cultural goal be able to improve the impact of your work?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Just a few quick words about the Asia-Europe Foundation. Maybe not everyone knows who we are. We are an intergovernmental organization, non-for-profit, based in Singapore, but operating in 51 countries of Asia and Europe. We are not an arts and culture organization, but we work across a number of themes and thematics, arts and culture being one of them. So for us, this document and the contribution, even small, that we made to the culture goal it's been absolutely essential, and will really help us, especially in terms of the target A, strengthening cultural institution, including through international cooperation to build capacity at all levels, because the sustainability of culture and cultural activities in intergovernmental institutions like ours is actually at risk of being really considered less relevant in today's fragile geopolitical context. The engagement of cultural projects and cultural institutions in delivering on different policy goals, education, social cohesion, skills, is often not recognized and understood. And in this case, we feel that for ASEF, it is really crucial to have the recognition of a culture goal, because it will also unlock funding and policy frameworks that are more open and responsive to culture once it is part of the SDGs. Too often, culture is treated as peripheral, and by making it a goal, it gains legitimacy alongside health, education, climate, opening also new channels of investment. For us in ASEF, this is vital because we operate at the crossroad of Asia and Europe, and resources and political will are what turn cultural dialogue into long-term cooperation. So to answer also your question, how is this cultural goal really helping us? Yes, it will be absolutely essential because it will give us a shared policy framework across Asia and Europe, ensuring that cultural cooperation is recognized as a driver of sustainable development. It will also unlock new funding mechanisms because once culture is in the SDGs, donors and governments are obliged to invest. And for us, at the level of ASEF as an organization, this would mean stronger backing to support multilateralism, which is at the center of what we do, equal partnerships and spaces where underrepresented voices from small communities to independent artists can be heard alongside policymakers. So this alignment would definitely amplify the impact of our work many times over. So just to conclude, I think that in terms of the dream, if the cultural goal sets the framework, ASEF, the Asia Europe Foundation role is to make it tangible by proving through our multilateral exchanges that solidarity and cultural rights are not abstract, but live realities that can inspire systemic change. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. Thank you so much. I'm going now to Fundación Thyssen-Bornemisza, Markus Reimann, and I would like to ask you, your foundation, you work with on the field of contemporary art, but you link contemporary art with environmental issues in a very interesting and forward-looking way. So would the cultural goal be able to make this connection in a more explicit way?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I want to point also to the indicator framework, no? Because I think this will really help us to create validation in this kind of policy space when we come from the cultural sector into environmental policies. And I'm saying this from experience, no? From experience and practice. TBA 21 is a contemporary art and advocacy organization where artists, contemporary artists, are really at the center. So we commission, we organize residencies, we have fellowships, we organize transdisciplinary research, especially since 2011 around questions of the ocean. Since the Paris Agreement, COP21, we've been going to these big framework conferences, COPs, IOCN, and all of them, and lately the United Nations Ocean Conference. And you can see that that the serious players in the room are science, their policy, and their industry, right? And everything else is there to serve that. We see also a turn to more demands for more data, more information, and more communication. And culture and art very easily slides into this idea of communicating. No, I think this is an expression of helplessness, because as we heard earlier from Jordi, that it's not going well. John echoed that. The direction of the Sustainable Development Goals, and so there's this idea of more communication, and therefore let's involve the arts to communicate to the heart. Right? This is not necessarily what we do. Right? And so therefore, there's more and more neuroscientific research that points to actually that it's empathy, context, and meaning that creates a very short pathway to action, and action is what we need, right? This is what we need. And this is not what data does, and this is not what facts does, no? Facts matter, but more so the story and who tells the story and how the story is told. So going back to the indicator framework, no? I think in that sense, the indicator framework will help us validate. The dream is, once we have this indicator framework and this cultural goal campaign, or this one cultural goal, art spaces, cultural spaces will be acknowledged as spaces where we can imagine and rehearse futures. These futures have to be implemented. And art and culture is a practice. It's a daily practice, it's a weekly practice, it's a monthly practice, and it's a practice to actually implement and manifest these possible futures that are different to those that we experience now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcos. Thank you very much. So we are not now going to the next panelist, Josep Ferrer. Nice to see you. You are the executive director of Anna Lindh Foundation, and your focus is the Mediterranean and the peace on Mediterranean and cultural relations across Mediterranean. So I would like to ask you if would a cultural goal be able to contribute to build peace?
Yes, thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for having me. Just to contextualize a little bit, as you said, we are an organization, an institutional organization that promotes intercultural dialogue in the Mediterranean, cultural exchanges among the EU and the southern countries around the Mediterranean. That involve 43 countries, governments, and 4,500 civil society organizations. And in the ALF, we believe very much that culture, intercultural dialogue, should be useful for societies and for institutions. And we believe very much on this concept of culture with purpose to achieve an impact that could be peace or could be inclusion. We are working very much in this regard. And in this regard, particularly I think in the Mediterranean, probably in other places in the world is the same, but culture in the Mediterranean is very instrumental on creating lasting bonds among both sorts of the Mediterranean and also among our societies. And also culture, by its nature, but its rule of engagement, allows to initiate dialogue in a very easy way with different parts that could be in conflict. So in this regard, yes, indeed, the culture could be a good asset in order to promote peace and security. And as you know, we are very much in need in the Mediterranean to have peace and security. And also in our ecosystem, in this ecosystem of the Euro-Mediterranean relations, I think we have a new framework, a new opportunity right now, which is the new Pact for the Mediterranean. It is that will be presented in mid-October. We have been working on that in the last month, and this is an initiative of the new Commission in order to promote and to structure the new relations or additional relations with our neighbors in the southern Mediterranean. And the ALF, the Anna Lindh Foundation, has advocated for through a position paper to make sure that in this new Pact for the Mediterranean that is going to structure the relation between both shores of the Mediterranean, the people-to-people connection and also the culture be at the heart of the Euro-Mediterranean relation. And I will finish to say that at the ALF, we will follow really the John's suggestions to make noise from now on, to adopt the culture goal into our practice, in our programming, and also to go out of our comfort zone in order to reach new believers. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ferrer. So we are moving from Europe to Latin America, and I would like now to to ask Rafael Calú, who is the representative of the Organización de Estados Iberoamericanos, OEI. And so you, in a way, are a lucky person because in all, most of your countries are in favor of a cultural goal. But as director for culture of OEI, why has OEI always placed culture at the center of the development?
Thank you very much. Hablaré en español. Antes que nada, creo que es una oportunidad muy oportuna, digamos, para que podamos cada vez más profundizar este diálogo, un espacio también que permite cada vez más también que tengamos consensos establecidos, entonces tener este diálogo en el ámbito también de estos días que anteceden el Mundial Culto es muy importante para nosotros. Bien, desde la Organización de Estados Iberoamericanos queremos siempre subrayar con firmeza una convicción que compartimos con muchos de los países en el ámbito iberoamericano, por supuesto, en su casi integralidad, que la cultura necesita y merece un objetivo de desarrollo sostenible específico y nominal. La Agenda 2030 ha demostrado que los ODS son una poderosa herramienta para movilizar recursos, fomentar la producción de datos e indicadores, orientar políticas públicas y generar consensos globales. Sin embargo, en el marco actual, la cultura aparece de manera transversal, difusa, sin un reconocimiento explícito que corresponda a su verdadera dimensión. Y sin ese reconocimiento, seguimos corriendo el riesgo de que la cultura quede en un segundo plano en la toma de decisiones internacionales. La contribución de la cultura al desarrollo sostenible en el ámbito iberoamericano se articula con varios ejes, por ejemplo, el económico, social, medioambiental, pero también el simbólico. En Iberoamérica, la cultura representa entre el 1,4% y el 3,4% del PIB de los países, siendo el sector que más genera empleo para jóvenes de hasta 30 años en el mundo, lo que lo convierte en un importante vector de inclusión social y productiva. Esto significa que la cultura en el ámbito social y económico tiene un impacto mayor que otros sectores tradicionales de la economía, como un alcance mucho más amplio que atraviesa nuestra identidad y repercute en múltiples dimensiones de nuestra vida social. La experiencia iberoamericana nos enseña que ahí donde la cultura es reconocida como política de Estado, las sociedades avanzan en inclusión, cohesión en el ámbito de estrategias de desarrollo sostenible. Un ODS específico para la cultura sería, por tanto, una herramienta decisiva para consolidar estos avances a escala mundial, otorgando a la cultura la centralidad que le corresponde. Desde la OEI, reiteramos nuestro compromiso con esta causa y nuestra disposición a trabajar con gobiernos, organismos internacionales, sociedad civil y comunidades culturales para que en la próxima agenda global, que vamos a empezar ahora a discutir en estos próximos años, la cultura tenga un lugar inequívoco como pilar de desarrollo sostenible, porque no habrá desarrollo pleno, inclusivo ni sostenible si la cultura no está en el centro de las políticas públicas en el ámbito de los consensos multilaterales. Aprovecho la oportunidad para comentar que cada vez más es importante que podamos salir de nuestras burbujas, hablando de cultura, y que podamos también incidir sobre los que están haciendo y articulando los acuerdos internacionales, es decir, los ministerios de Relaciones Exteriores de nuestros países y en nuestros ámbitos de trabajo. Porque si no incidimos en este ámbito, al final tenemos muchos éxitos en el ámbito de las declaraciones de cultura, pero sin condiciones de negociar y avanzar hacia un consenso internacional articulado en torno a la cultura con la centralidad que debemos tener la cultura en el ámbito de la agenda internacional que para nosotros es tan importante. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, muchas gracias. Now I will ask Snezka Mihailovic. So, Snezka, you are a very strong voice also at European level. Your organization is champion of heritage in development. So you are also very committed to the cultural deal with the Cultural Action Europe we heard about from Lars now. So yet, and also at this global level, there is a target in the current frame of the SDGs, the target 11.4. But do you think it's enough? Or do we need more? Or what do we need to do?
Thank you, Caterina. Thank you, our dear colleagues, for inviting Europa Nostra also to be part of this extraordinary mobilization for the culture goal, standalone culture goal. Definitely, Caterina, is not enough. It was some kind of a consolation prize that we got to have the 11.4 target to say cultural heritage is mentioned. Europa Nostra is the European voice of civil society committed to cultural heritage in Europe. But we are not here to be satisfied with consolation prizes. We are here indeed to move mountains, to say, really this aberration, I don't know what you say it in English, has to stop. Somehow that the leadership and the member states in the European, at level of the United Nations, have finally to align with what is happening already on the ground. And it has been happening for centuries. What we are here advocating, the culture goal, and that culture matters to people and communities and the nature and the planet and the humanity, it's something which indeed, I think, why is it so? Everyone said in such an eloquent way, so I don't need to add more. I can only say that Europa Nostra is committed, very committed to promoting this vital objective, in particularly at European level, because that is sort of our raison d'être. And together, thank you, Lars, also for mentioning, together with Culture Action Europe, we are fighting for and advocating for the cultural deal, cultural goal, cultural deal. We will get a cultural compass. The European Commissioner, Glenn Mikalev, fortunately is coming here in Barcelona. We are waiting for a cultural compass. All that says that it's something that is essential. Now, the why, as I said, we said, how? Now, just the one minute for how. That means that we are all here with our different constituency. Some are working on the level of one continent. The others are global organization. But I think the coalition with cities is fundamental. So it's not for nothing that this culture summit is the UCLG has done it. Because even if the member states will continue saying we don't need a standalone culture goal, the city can do it. Each of our organization can prove that this is happening. We will organize our European Cultural Heritage Summit in 2 weeks' time in Brussels. We will have on stage in Brussels phenomenal people who won our awards, who are showing on every day that heritage matters, that culture matters, and it can be done. So I think that we should just don't bother even if it doesn't come, but we will come. I can't imagine that with all this mobilization, with all these summits and all these conferences and all these documents, we will not get, because if you look visually of the presentation of the 17 SDGs, there is that hole. The 18, there is 6, 5, and then they put that logo. But that's where it is, and it shows that it's missing. It's very visible that it's missing. It must happen. But even, as I said, I will end up with the quote, famous quote of Talleyrand. We need, in fact, a Talleyrand at these conferences. He said, ça va bien même sans le dire, mais il ira beaucoup mieux en le disant. So, it will go much better if we say it, and don't take it for granted. And all of us, we have, I think, the phenomenal presentation in the first panel saying, we can each of us do it, and the culture goal exists for each of us already. Let's just continue doing it.
Thank you.
So I will turn now to Stefan Tesano. You're the Secretary General of the Cultural Next Cities Network. You support the efforts of cities to connect cultural policies to other policies already. So in what way would a culture goal be beneficial to support these connections?
Why did I get here after your speech? And before lunch, how can I be so unlucky? Yeah. Yes, Culture Next is a network of 50 European cities, almost all countries in EU are represented, but also a few countries outside EU, such as the United Kingdom and Ukraine, and countries that are negotiating now with the EU are also present through their cities. And all of our cities are current or former candidate cities for the European Capital of Culture title, no matter if they won or lost. And at the city level, of course, it's obvious that we all believe, we all understand that culture is fundamental, is essential. Culture is that one thing that makes our world humane in itself. But it was always so complicated to prove it to our politicians, to make it visible like that, and to make it recognized like this. So that's why a few years ago, 3 years ago, we started. We went on a search in the UN agenda to look for culture, and we found it in 4 or 5 places like this, very well hidden. And we try to measure if culture is actually present. Can we measure culture output on all of the SDGs? And we had this idea that in this attempt to prove that we can measure culture in all of the SDGs, there will still be some missing measurements that are not there, and this is how we wanted to prove that an 18 goal is needed. So when we started, we took 30 big programs of 30 cities bidding for European Capital of Culture, and they had 3,000 indicators. They were all trying to get to a measurement, but they had 3,000 indicators. No 2 cities were doing the same thing. Most of the indicators didn't have a baseline. And now with this, I think we finally have a solid ground with these new indicators that were brilliantly formulated by UCLG, John, and the steering committee. We have a solid ground to take it back to our cities, to make this a baseline to measure our cultural output in our cities. And for Culture Next, I think this is starting next month when we meet in Poland with our 50 cities. Our ambition is to make this indicator set the baseline for all the programs that are attempting to become a capital of culture in Europe or in other continents. So if your city is bidding or was a candidate city for a capital of culture program, no matter the continent, come on, join us, and let's do it.
Thank you. Now the floor will go to Camille Gietle, Director for Culture City and Metropolis of Strasbourg. So you are the first ever city that has not only given support to the culture goal, but included a full chapter on culture in your local review on SDGs. So you have been very bold. Why?
Bonjour à toutes et tous et merci beaucoup Katharina pour votre question. Merci au CGLU pour l'invitation faite à la ville et à l'Eurométropole de Strasbourg. Donc Strasbourg est une capitale européenne qui a toujours placé la culture au cœur de son identité et de son développement. Depuis 2017, avec l'Eurométropole de Strasbourg, nous allons plus loin encore et affirmons que la culture n'est pas un simple complément aux 17 objectifs de développement durable, mais un levier essentiel pour les atteindre. C'est pourquoi les élus de la ville et de l'Eurométropole de Strasbourg ont souhaité créer au sein de notre revue volontaire locale un 18e ODD dédié à la culture, car nous pensons que la culture participe des réponses aux défis globaux et locaux, tant en matière de lutte contre les inégalités, de transition écologique ou encore de promotion de la paix et de la justice sociale. Alors, dans un premier temps, dès 1988, cette approche a été liée à la question de la protection de notre patrimoine grâce au classement de l'UNESCO de la Grande Île de Strasbourg et plus tard, en 2017, de sa Neustadt. Ces démarches de classement qui visent initialement la protection du patrimoine ont permis de promouvoir une approche nouvelle de la ville, plus verte, plus résiliente, à travers une politique d'aménagement vertueuse qui permettait d'améliorer le cadre de vie. Donc, en 2017, Strasbourg et l'Eurométropole se sont engagés dans une territorialisation des objectifs de développement durable afin d'évaluer plus finement l'atteinte de ces objectifs en fonction des réalités territoriales locales. Nous avons alors d'emblée ajouté la culture comme objectif à part entière. Cela nous paraissait indispensable et notre ambition était de disposer d'un outil de pilotage global de la durabilité. Évidemment, dans une ville qui consacre plus de 20% de son budget total à la culture, il ne paraissait pas concevable que la culture soit absente de l'évaluation au titre des ODD. Et par ailleurs, à l'échelle d'une ville et d'une métropole, la politique culturelle, elle entre forcément en résonance avec les autres politiques publiques et peut contribuer aux objectifs de développement durable des autres champs thématiques. Nous considérons en effet que la culture est un moteur de cohésion sociale et d'inclusion, et nous avons pu le constater, notamment avec les démarches de participation citoyenne que nous avons mises en place ces dernières années autour de la programmation de nos musées. La culture est également un accélérateur de transition écologique, et ainsi, à Strasbourg, nous avons mis en œuvre une classe climat, action de sensibilisation et de formation de près de 150 acteurs culturels aux enjeux de transition écologique. La culture est également un levier économique et d'innovation, et nous soutenons plusieurs filières à cet égard. Et enfin, la culture est un pilier de la paix et de la démocratie, et dans le cadre de Strasbourg, capitale mondiale du livre, nous avons soutenu une académie internationale des écrivains pour la paix. Et je termine très rapidement pour vous dire que l'introduction de ce 18e objectif de développement durable n'est pas qu'un symbole, il se traduit concrètement chaque jour sur le terrain, au profit de l'ensemble des habitantes et habitants de notre territoire. Et cette aspiration est également relayée fortement grâce à notre action internationale. Et Strasbourg est également signataire de l'appel à agir pour une culture moins carbonée et plus inclusive du réseau Eurocities, et à participer au plaidoyer français pour la reconnaissance de l'ODD 18. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup Camille. Thank you very much. It's indeed a very good example how the cultural goal is already in place in some places. Thank you very much. And now for our last panelist, Ibon Bengoetxea, the Vice President and Minister for Culture of the Basque Country. And you are also a champion on implementing the goal, because your government is fully committed to SDG 18. So a few months ago, you published Goal 18 on cultural and linguistic diversity. And could you explain us why?
Thank you very much. Egun on guztioi eta eskerrik asko hemen izateagatik. Euskaditik nator, herri txiki bat, 2,2 milioikoak eta hizkuntz propio batekin. I was saying in my own language, which is Basque language, Euskera, that we are a small community of 2.2 million people with our own language, and I wanted, talking about culture and linguistic diversity, to greet you in my own language. Now I will go for Spanish and to the subject. El título de este encuentro hablaba de amenazas y oportunidades. Y a mí me gusta siempre fijarme en las oportunidades, y creo que la primera oportunidad que he tenido como representante del Gobierno vasco es ostentar una vicepresidencia. Esto no ha sido algo casual, ha sido una elección de este Gobierno de querer poner a la cultura en el centro. Las vicepresidencias de los gobiernos tradicionalmente tienen un componente económico, diría yo. Y la cultura siempre se ha visto como un contenido transversal que atraviesa todas las políticas, pero nunca ha tenido un carácter de centralidad. Y por tanto, cuando antes el secretario de Estado, Jordi, decía que lo público tiene que liderar y que hay una agencia, una capacidad de hacer desde lo público, o cuando John decía que se podían adoptar compromisos desde ese voluntary basis, pues esta vicepresidencia ha sido una adopción voluntaria de querer poner a la cultura en el sitio que se merece. El Gobierno vasco, plenamente comprometido con los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible, entendió que lo que la comunidad internacional, que aquí estoy representada, solicitaba respecto al Objetivo 18 era una necesidad, y decidió, en ese ejercicio voluntario de su acción política, poner en marcha un Objetivo 18 que, lógicamente, siendo una comunidad con una lengua propia, debía de incorporar también a la lengua en ese propio objetivo. Y por tanto, bueno, pues con esa necesidad de reivindicar el papel de la cultura y de la lengua como motores del desarrollo de todas las personas y de todas las sociedades, definió 20 metas, definió también con qué otros objetivos de desarrollo estaban vinculadas, y también definió qué agentes tenían que aportar a cada una de esas metas. Evidentemente, este objetivo está vivo. Hoy estamos hablando de que ha habido una revisión, y estaremos gustosos también de revisar nuestro propio objetivo en base a la revisión que esta comunidad internacional ha realizado, para irnos también adaptando a la evolución de los tiempos, porque las sociedades afortunadamente son vivas, ¿no? Vinculado a esta idea de voluntariedad y más allá de tener definido y escrito y aprobado por el propio Consejo de Gobierno este objetivo 18, también tomamos decisiones en las que desde la cultura aportamos al resto de objetivos. Y el ejemplo más reciente lo hemos tenido esta semana en el Festival de Cine de San Sebastián, del que tanto el Gobierno español, a través del Ministerio, la ministra, como el propio Gobierno vasco y otras instituciones del país como Diputación y Ayuntamiento formamos parte. El Gobierno vasco otorga, en el marco de ese festival, que es nuestra mayor muestra internacional de cultura audiovisual, siempre un premio vinculado a la Agenda 2030, pero siempre a través de una creación artística, siempre a través de una producción. Este año ha sido para una película de una mujer, poniendo en valor el valor de las mujeres tunecinas, que hacía o narraba o relataba el asesinato de una niña palestina de 5 años. Más allá de este objetivo y vinculado a esa agencia, vamos a aprobar una ley que pone a la cultura en el centro. Y no es una ley de cultura, es una ley del sistema cultural. Estoy segura que a ninguna de vosotros os sorprende que se hable de un sistema educativo o de un sistema sanitario. Y creo que es hora también de que hablemos de la cultura como un sistema en el que formamos parte muchos actores: gobiernos, academia, ciudadanía organizada, ciudadanos, industrias creativas, por supuesto, las compañías privadas. Y es para sacar a la cultura de ese espacio indefinido en el que está en todos los lados y no está en ninguno. Esa ley estará absolutamente alineada con esta revisión de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible y además nos obligará y nos comprometerá a crear una carta, en este caso vasca, de derechos culturales. Y digo vasca porque estas grandes metas y estos objetivos han de adecuarse después a la realidad donde cada uno opera. Por tanto, yo invito a todos los gobiernos de cualquier nivel, locales, regionales y, por supuesto, a todos los estados, a que pongan en marcha, sin esperar a que se adopte este objetivo 18, políticas como si ya lo estuviera.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. So thank you very much. Thank you all, dear panelists, for your contributions. You show that already a lot of work is being done in the reality with civil society, with local governments. Myself, having been Deputy Mayor for Culture and Tourism for 12 years, I really believe and also trying to answer what John Crowley asked for the 3 calls. I would say the most important call is go to action already on a volunteer basis on cities, because that's where we are close to people, where everyday life happens and where we can show the evidence of how culture is important for our daily lives. So thank you very much, and thank you also for the government of Spain for organizing this meeting, this Agora meeting, and of course for all the UCLG team for all this fantastic work. Okay, and next segment will be shared by the president of UCLG, Jordi is coming. Emilia Sanchez. I also wanted to say that since Emilia is the chair of UCLG, culture played a much more important role at the UCLG local policy. So I really congratulate the president of UCLG for the work she has done in advocating for culture. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Yes, we will spend 3 minutes to prepare the stage for the final segment. We are, we beg your patience for 3 more minutes. Thank you. Hello. Yes, please take your seats. We are about to begin the final segment of the session. Why we need a culture goal now. This third segment, the title of this third segment is The Key Steps from 2025, this year, to 2030. We cannot imagine a better panel than this one to close the session, Why we need a culture goal now. A huge gratitude to you all, a huge gratitude to people. Without them, we would not be here. And let me be explicit. The interpreters, the technicians of sound, video, streaming, the cleaning people, and also the health services that are here for us in case we need them. Also, a very sincere gratitude to the teams of the CCCB, especially the director, Judith Carrera, and all her team, Elisenda, Amalia, Maria, and all the team. Thank you very much for having the privilege of being in the CCCB today. The key steps from 2025 to 2030. The proposal is on the table. It has been written by John Crowley with the campaign, the 8 members of the steering group of the campaign, other 30 networks, and more than 1,000 people explicitly contributed to this proposal. The questions for you are the following. How will the culture goal be discussed in Mondiacult 2025? What are the key steps we need to make the culture goal a reality? And what commitments can your organizations take to make it happen? The first speaker is the Special Rapporteur on Cultural Rights, Alexandra Shanthaki. Alexandra, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So I think that you all know that I have supported this goal from the very beginning of my, from taking on the role of the UN Special Rapporteur in the field of cultural rights. I have written 2 reports on development and cultural rights, and in both reports, I refer this as a recommendation to all states, etc. So I will continue to support this. I will continue to support this because I think that this is the only way that, or this is one of the ways that cultural rights are going to be, to continue to be implemented. But also because I think that the argument that cultural rights are transversal and we don't need them as a standalone goal because we have to take them into account in every single goal has not really materialized. So when we're talking about gender equality, we haven't really taken into account that we have to change the values of the communities and the individuals before we actually do have gender equality. When we talk about economic development, we haven't really taken into account the priorities and visions of the different peoples and how their understandings of economic development are going to be materialized. And we haven't really managed to get to the IMF and tell them, and the World Bank to any substantial degree, and tell them that they have to take into account cultural rights, so the visions and priorities and structures that groups and individuals have. But I also wonder, especially after these 2 panels that I attended, whether we have ourselves looked inside our organizations and whether we have implemented the human rights approach to culture, the human rights approach via cultural rights, whether we have improved our participatory structures, whether we have understood what we mean by cultural rights and where we can find the sources of cultural rights. So I guess this is also an ongoing steps for all of us, including the UN, including the mandate. I think that also the next steps, of course, would be to disseminate and push for this standalone goal, but also to remember the positionality of SDGs. SDGs are political commitments, and they're political commitments that will help us materialize the legal binding obligations that states have. These are called cultural rights. So the states can make their political commitments, and we can push for that, and it is important to have this. But it is the legal obligations that states have signed and ratified that they will respect that that is the ultimate goal. And we have to link the SDGs and the specific SDG with cultural rights. I see, and of course this is ongoing work, it is fantastic work, and I fully endorse it. But I see that cultural rights are included in a couple of targets. We have to include them in all the targets. Because really, we don't care about saving the museum, we care about saving the museum so that my child can go to the museum and my child can participate in what the museum is going to show so that my child feels that their identity is materialized. So I think that cultural rights should be more there. Also in the sources, we have to take into account, there are all the fantastic UNESCO sources. If we are serious about cultural rights, we really have to take into account and reflect on what a plethora, all of the UN Special Rapporteurs, the treaties have said, and of course how they have interpreted Article 15 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. The second step is to remember what SDGs represent and to remember that it is not the ultimate goal. The second issue I will push for is for the definition of cultural rights, because cultural rights is of course a part of artistic expression, and let's all try to link this with development as an intrinsic value, though, not as part of tourism or part of more revenues for the state. And of course it is about all the other aspects, museums and libraries and identity. But really, the link between sustainable development and cultural rights is that peoples must, their identities, their values, their visions have to be represented in sustainable development. And everybody that will read this new goal has to take this into account, because this is the core of what we mean by culture. It is our ways of life and our understandings and our values and our aspirations and our priorities and our visions. And this is what we mean by protecting culture as in the only way that we can through cultural rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra Chanzaki, UN Special Rapporteur on Cultural Rights. Now the floor is for Margareth Menezes, the Minister for Culture of Brazil. Minister, you have the floor.
Obrigada, boa tarde a todos e a todas. Quero dizer que para mim um prazer de participar dessa mesa. Quero saudar o ministro da Espanha, saudar a todos aqui em nome dele e dizer que nós no Brasil, nesse momento, estamos na construção de políticas mais democráticas e sustentáveis, né, que é um ponto importante, está no cerne do governo brasileiro. Queremos avançar garantindo que todas as vozes sejam ouvidas, fortalecendo esse multilateralismo e combatendo as desigualdades. Isso também significa construir uma justiça climática, reconhecendo que os impactos da crise recaem de forma desigual sobre povos indígenas, comunidades quilombolas, ribeirinhas e periféricas. É um contexto marcado por uma crise climática, desigualdades e ataques à democracia. A cultura exerce um papel estratégico na busca de soluções coletivas, inclusivas e baseadas no desenvolvimento sustentável. O Ministério da Cultura, nós estamos trabalhando envolvendo de forma plena pela inclusão da cultura como uma meta, né, autônoma dos Objetivos de Desenvolvimento Sustentável pós-2030, atuando pelo exemplo, por meios de políticas concretas que geram efeitos para a população e para o setor, participando nos principais fóruns multilaterais, como o G20, o BRICS, Unesco, Mundiacult, buscando contribuir com as experiências que temos das nossas políticas, algumas com 20 anos, com uma cultura viva, outras com 33 anos, como a nossa lei de financiamento de cultura. Tem esse objetivo independente na Agenda de Desenvolvimento das Nações Unidas, é reconhecer a importância e a força da cultura no seu devido lugar na transformação, como um agente de transformação da vida em todos os seus, nas suas dimensões simbólicas, econômicas, sociais, mas também vendo também a cultura como a força que ela tem como um território, os territórios, os DNA territoriais de cada em relação à cultura. No Brasil estamos trabalhando também essa visão. E a cultura é uma área que emprega milhões de pessoas, né? Emprega muitas mulheres, muitos jovens. Posicionar a cultura nessa agenda é fundamental para garantir o avanço do campo cultural, para que o desenvolvimento sustentável seja entendido no seu escopo integral, abrangendo a vida de todas as pessoas em conexão com a economia e o meio ambiente. Desculpa. No Brasil, temos um compromisso em desempenhar e implementar políticas culturais que transformem a vida das pessoas. Estamos implementando em sintonia com as necessidades locais, dos territórios e comunidades, ouvindo as pessoas, ouvindo as comunidades. Nosso Plano Nacional de Cultura foi feito com essa escuta, desde a nossa 4ª Conferência Nacional de Cultura, porque nós acreditamos que para fazer uma cultura, uma política mais eficiente, é necessário que se ouça também quem está nas pontas. Então, fizemos um processo para construir esse Plano Nacional de Cultura com essa escuta nas comunidades, uma construção muito participativa. Eu acho que, nesse momento, precisamos escutar quem pratica, quem está nas pontas, para fazermos a política mais efetiva, respeitando essa diversidade de gente, de pensamento, de influências que nós temos em todo o nosso mundo. Então, o nosso plano está com um alinhamento e com desafios contemporâneos de ação climática e combate à desigualdade, conectado à agenda do Mundiacult, da Agenda 2030, com indicadores e métricas de desenvolvimento. E esse estudo que está sendo feito hoje no CGLU será uma contribuição bem especial para fortalecer a implementação e avaliação das políticas culturais brasileiras, com vista no termo da ODS da cultura. Então, eu quero agradecer mais uma vez e desejar, com certeza, que possamos colher boas propostas nessa audiência e parabenizar também essa ação de colaboração, desse multilateralismo, que é uma forma muito respeitosa das relações humanas. Eu acho que a cultura também tem esse lugar de exemplo, de possibilidades de diferentes pensamentos, mas que são contemplados com a mesma forma de possibilidades. Então, muito obrigada.
Muito obrigado, Margaret Menezes, Ministra de Cultura de Brasil. Ahora voy a dar la palabra al Ministro de Cultura de España, Ernest Urtasun. Ernest, tens la palabra, you have the floor.
Moltes gràcies. Well, Thank you so much, and firstly, let me thank UCLG for being that involved in the Mondiacol process. I think that the voice of local government is essential for what we're trying to build during this week, and I'm really, really delighted to be with all of you this morning. Look, when we discuss about the own cultural goal, for me, it's very clear that now it's the moment to have it, to obtain it, and of course, Mondiacol will be a very important moment to have a very strong goal, to have this standalone goal. Why is it the moment now to have it? Look, I think that in general, more and more countries have started to consider cultural policies more and more as a fundamental right. So we were discussing that yesterday. For many years, cultural policies were too much focused as promoting the consumption element of culture, but not that much to consider culture as a fundamental right. And there is, all around the world, a fundamental switch on how culture is considered in several member states. And I want to take to seize this occasion that I have the Brazilian Minister of Culture with us, to praise and acknowledge the role that Brazil has played in the world in shaping those cultural policies as a public good and as a fundamental right, because you have opened the floor for many of us. And I am also very proud that we as a team in the Spanish Cultural Minister, we have now launched, as you know, we had the occasion to present it yesterday, our first cultural rights plan of Spain, which follows a bit the line of trying and starting to consider culture as a fundamental right. And of course, all these discussions that we are having at the level of several member states, they need to be reflected in the new cultural agenda. This is my pledge today as a Spanish Minister of Culture, is that we want, several of us would like to have that in the international agenda, and I'm sure Ernesto will talk more about this, and UNESCO more and more has been dealing with that. Also, I would like to take the You can also thank the UNESCO, and you can thank Mexico, because that discussion was already present in the previous editions of Mondiacult and in the declaration of Mondiacult in Mexico. So I think there has been a strong work being developed. Same thing for our beloved special rapporteur, who is fighting very much for this. And I want to say something that I mentioned also yesterday, which is that, look, culture is considered a fundamental right, actually, since the beginning of the San Francisco Charter and since 1966 in the International Covenant for Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. So it's there. It's in our law, it's in our international law for more than 50, 60 years now. The problem is that we haven't implemented, and Alexander was talking about a lot of implementation yesterday, we haven't implemented this international legal framework that is actually already in place for several years. So now it's the moment, really is the moment, and it comes also, and I want to mention that as well, it comes at a very particular moment in international relations. So if there is a moment where we need to push culture as not only to have a standalone goal, but to play a central role in international cooperation, is now. So in a moment where international law is contested, in a moment where multilateralism is contested, in a moment where the UN framework is contested, we need more and more to put culture at the center of our international discussions. So if there is a moment in our history, since the beginning of the UN process, where we need culture at the center of international dialogue, this moment is now, because we are facing a very difficult moment at the international level. And that is why, and I want to thank UNESCO again, this is one of the reasons, and I want to be very frank with you, why we as Spain, we had a very strong interest in hosting this Mondiacult. Because we wanted to play and to have an important contribution and to try to push that agenda forward. And together with Ernesto, we have been working very hand in hand in the last months around the final declaration and the text. I think that the outcome, I'm pretty positive. The official segment of Mondiacol is only starting on Monday, as you know, but I'm pretty confident that we will have a positive outcome. Of course, now it's the moment for the ministers to discuss, to reflect, and to see what do we want to do. But I think, and I'm confident, we'll have a positive outcome, because what I would love to see in this Mondiacult is when the member states will meet in 2027. That will be the key defining moment where the agenda will be set. To be very honest, we don't know yet whether we will have several goals, no goals, how the development agenda would look like. It's still a big question mark. But I want, and we want, all of us, the culture ministers, when in 2027 the member states are looking to define the new agenda, that they have on the table a very strong call on the side of the culture ministers. I think this is our duty, and this is what we will try to do during the next coming days. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Moltes gràcies. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Ernesto Urtasun, Minister for Culture of Spain. And now the floor is for Ernesto Otone Ramírez, Assistant Director General for Culture, UNESCO.
It's always funny when I come after Ernest, because it's Ernesto. It's so crazy. So, first of all, I will not speak in English. I will speak in Spanish. It's the first time that I can do it, so I will use my mother language. Entonces, a ver, ¿por dónde empezar? Primero agradecer la invitación, Jordi. Tú sabes que siempre es un placer trabajar con ustedes. Y es un placer estar con ministros que admiro profundamente. Y bueno, nuestra socia acá en Derechos Culturales, que la Special Rapporteur ha estado trabajando de la mano de todo lo que se ha hecho. Quiero comentarle algunas cosas, ya que hoy día hablaron tanto de storytelling, tan importante. Y es lo siguiente. Cuando me tocó llegar a la UNESCO en el 2018, ya estaba la agenda armada, como todos sabemos, y efectivamente, al parecer, todo el mundo me decía que estábamos tan orgullosos en el sector cultural porque teníamos el 11.4 y el 4.7, donde cultura y patrimonio estaba mencionado. Como que trataron de convencernos durante un año, y yo también hice ese trabajo de decir, bueno, sí, pero finalmente estamos en todos lados. ¡Mentira! No estábamos en ningún lado. No existíamos. Esa es la verdad. Y pese a todo el esfuerzo que ya se había hecho desde la sociedad civil, desde el año 2012 se empezó a trabajar. Sociedad civil, los gobiernos locales, los municipios alrededor de todo el mundo, y muchos gobiernos también, hay que decirlo, empujaron la agenda. Finalmente, en las discusiones no existió en Naciones Unidas, simplemente. Pues bien, uno cuando retoma el 2018, acuérdense que pasó algo entre el 2019 y 2020 que supuestamente había cambiado nuestras vidas. Hoy en día no sabemos si nos cambió la vida, pero nos puso una pausa y nos permitió hacer una reflexión. Y la reflexión era, pues bien, de repente nos encerramos todos, y aparentemente la cultura, el arte, el patrimonio se convirtió en nuestro eje central para no deprimirnos y tirarnos por la ventana. O sea, de repente se convirtió en lo que hoy día estamos diciendo, que es un eje, no solamente del desarrollo sostenible, pero de la vida del ser humano, el integrar sus derechos culturales como un fenómeno normal de todos los días. Y que eso es lo que queremos transmitirle a las futuras generaciones. Pues bien, la discusión se inicia. Tenemos este gran momento que fue, como lo mencionó Ernest, Mondiacult 2022, 40 años después de la última reunión de ministros de Cultura. 40 años, no sé si se entienden lo que eso es, esperar 40 años para reunir ministros. Y hay una declaración que es muy fuerte, en donde se reconoce como public good, donde se llama a tener encuentros cada 4 años, donde se pide por primera vez hacer un informe global, y para los que todavía no lo tienen, porque se le transmitió a los ministros, pero se lanza el próximo lunes, Mondiacult, el informe global de cultura y desarrollo sostenible tiene un subtexto, que es cultura, the missing goal. O sea, es el objetivo ausente. Y estuvo ausente, y hoy día tenemos los resultados que tenemos para llegar a acceder a la Agenda de 2030 de manera honrosa, voy a decirlo. Pues bien, simplemente porque no está. Hoy en día es el momento, tal como lo dijo Ernest y como lo ha mencionado la ministra, en donde esta discusión puede tomar una forma que conduzca a los Estados miembros, a nivel político, ya estamos hablando no solamente de la acción de sus representantes en la UNESCO, que es Cultura, Educación y Ciencia, pero a nivel político, para que el 2027, cuando las discusiones se van a iniciar, ya no hayan peros, para meter cultura en la agenda. Porque los peros eran, no tenemos cómo medirlo. Los indicadores se lanzan ahora, ustedes han hecho un trabajo muy minucioso y quiero agradecer a Nigel y todo el equipo porque realmente han logrado, Crowley, John, porque han sido capaces de integrar muchos elementos y el Framework of Statistics que se lanza de UNESCO integra el tema digital que está ausente en 2009, porque seguimos trabajando sobre la base de estadística de 2009, que no tenemos cómo medir, nos van a permitir tener, ahora, tal como se dijo, que se llame perro, gato, agenda, no agenda, nosotros decimos en Chile, maní. Ese no es el tema. El tema es que en la agenda o lo que se construya como agenda esté cultura y que no tengamos más excusas para decir que cultura sigue siendo un adorno en nuestras vidas. No lo es, no lo ha sido nunca y no lo será jamás. Finalmente, solamente para concluir, decirles que la esperanza y la fe, bueno, yo no soy muy católico, pero la fe, digámoslo como es, en el ser humano, es poder decir al final de este viaje, que va a ser 2030, 2031, que cuando hoy día, porque sacar un texto de consenso, y Ernest sabe de lo que estamos hablando, la ministra también, porque ha participado activamente, de consenso entre 195 Estados miembros sobre cuál debería ser el esqueleto de lo que sería un independent goal, un standalone goal, o como quiera que se llame, ha sido difícil. Y si tú miras el lenguaje, hoy en día algunos países están reticentes por lo mismo que se decía. No sabemos cómo se va a construir la agenda. Pero si los ministros de Cultura no entienden que es necesario empujar para tener un objetivo, difícilmente las otras entidades políticas podrán llevar a cabo esta discusión. Por lo tanto, cuando me dicen esos estados, ¿pero por qué estás tan obsesionado con el standalone goal? Le digo, ustedes confunden obsesión con pasión. La pasión es lo que nos mueve a los que somos creadores, gestores culturales y también políticos que trabajan en el ámbito cultura. Eso se llama pasión. Es como cuando uno se acerca a una mujer o un hombre y algo le pasa. La obsesión no es lo que nos mueve, es la pasión. Por lo tanto, standalone goal con pasión. Chao.
Muchas gracias, Ernesto. Muchas gracias. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. We beg your patience and generosity for the next 5 minutes because we are going to take a picture with this panel right now, and we are going to take a picture of us all. Mark will come on stage. You will be invited to stand up, and we are going to take a picture. It will take us 3 minutes to set the venue to take that picture. Please breathe profoundly, feel the energy, and enjoy that picture. Thank you.